Hello, and welcome to another edition of the G Suiteness Hour. My name is Ben Wilkoff. I am the Program Director for Personalized Learning in Aurora Public Schools. And today we are going to be diving into a couple of the finer points of using G Suite for education, specific to the needs of our classified staff members. So I'm really excited to walk through some of the supports that we have for folks who are looking to transition from Outlook to G Suite, Gmail, and Google Calendar for their everyday productivity and use within the classified environment. And again, all of our resources can be found at gsuite.aurorak12.org. We have the ability to go there and decide whether or not you want to talk about Outlook to G Suite, or if you want to get some certification resources and join the APS cohort in order to become a Google Certified Educator. But today, really what we want to take a look at are the resources that we are building directly for our certified staff. We have a couple of sessions coming up on Friday for folks who want that face-to-face, but we also have some resources on the Outlook to G Suite page within our transition documentation. So if you scroll down, you can see the frequently asked questions, which are really great. You can schedule your own PD if you need that face-to-face and you can't find another opportunity. But down here under transition help, it says, are you a classified employee? If so, click on this link and it'll take you to this document here. Classified staff supports for Outlook to G Suite transition. And what's really cool about this is essentially we're just focused on the context for our classified staff, but it could be useful for everybody, depending on your role. So we want to talk about some of the shifts in language, and we also want to talk about the specific tasks that you might be asked to do as a classified employee. And it really makes it nice and easy for you to sort of get help when you might need it. So there are some background information. Obviously, you have your information directly from the resource site. But if we go down into the first full section called the language of G Suite, and I just want to talk a little bit about the changes in language from Outlook to using Gmail and Google Calendar. We have some Outlook specific terms like folders and cabinets where you put your mail. Those become labels. And if you're interested in learning more about labels, how to categorize mail, how to put things into your labels, you can click directly here. And I've linked it to the G Suite training resource that will automatically start to play directly into your browser window. So it will actually, and I'm going to not end the lesson here, but what we're going to see here is that this tutorial opens up directly into your interface, your Gmail, so that you can see how to apply labels to one of your messages. So each one of these links is directly to the resource to learn more about that. So instead of deleting messages inside of Outlook, which is something that you would get, that you would do regularly, you tend to archive messages. And the biggest difference in our Gmail is that we actually have this this space called All Mail, which has everything in there. It's got everything that you might need in order to see your mail. It's got everything that you might want to see that has not been deleted. So anything, because we have infinite storage here, all you have to do is when you see a message that you want to dive into, you can simply archive it. And it will stay in your all mail, which means that it is entirely searchable, right? It is, you have the ability to search for anything. You can search for individual recipients. If you click on that little drop-down menu, you can decide who it's from, to, subject, how has the words, doesn't have certain words, has attachments. You can search for attachments of a certain size or at a specific date range. And what's great about this, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, is that you can set these searches up and actually just filter your mail to put them into certain labels, which makes it really nice and easy to to be able to manipulate your mail much more easily inside of G Suite or Gmail. In Outlook, we might flag messages, but in Gmail, you're going to star them or mark them as important. And actually, inside of the desktop client, you have multiple different ways of starring things. So if I go to my settings right over here, I actually see that, oh man, I've got all of these stars that are available, including checkboxes, including exclamation points, and those could mean different things to me. Those are going to show up inside of your desktop client on any Mac or PC or any Chromebook. Anything that will run the Chrome browser, you're going to be able to see. You're going to be able to see these notifications, which will mean something to you and them, which is fantastic. So you'll be able to see all your starred items. This is something that a lot of folks really like inside of Gmail. A message thread is all collected into a conversation. But if you're the type of person who wants to see every single individual, message come through on their own, you can actually turn the conversation view off, and then you'll go back to kind of that Outlook style where you see every individual message come through. For me, it makes a lot of sense to sort of collect all those messages with the same subject line into a single location so I can see all those messages in a single conversation. It also lets me, if I'm the type of person who wants to make a PDF or even print out a set of messages, it collects them all together and you can see them all. And I don't have to dive through all of the all of the CC'd information that is down below, which makes it really nice and easy. So that's a few pieces of the language. There are a couple more that may be of value to think about in a transition from Outlook to Gmail and Google Calendar. One is, a lot of people talk about out of office auto replies or automatic replies. This really is vacation responders or vacation responses. And that's done in the settings as well. So it's important to kind of know, all right, I'm going to set my vacation responder rather than my out of office reply or automatic reply. Makes it really nice and easy for folks to kind of understand what's going on at every moment. Looks like we've got a couple of folks who are viewing along with the G Suiteness Hour. So please do, if you have any questions, use the live chat functionality and let me know what you're thinking, or if you have questions that you're worried about. Definitely a good time to get notified and get the information you might need. I'm just going to write a message there just to say, hey. All right, let's talk about a couple more terms. So scheduling a meeting or making an appointment is something that you did in Outlook, whereas in Google Calendar, you actually create events. When you create an event, it's important that you are using that create button. So creating an event, you can do so by doing the quick add or by clicking on create, and it'll take you into the event view. And it's important to think about that it isn't the language specifically of making an appointment or scheduling a meeting. Those are things that you can still do, but the event itself is the creation of that event, and then everyone is invited to the event, right? You're not forwarding an invite, you are adding guests. You are adding them from the guest list over here. You're seeing whether or not there is availability for them because they're all within our G Suite domain. but you're going to be able to add those guests. And that's a little bit of a shift in language from what we had in Outlook. Now, important to think about in terms of managing delegates for Calendar, that's really not what we're doing inside of Google Calendar. Inside of Google Calendar, we're actually just managing the sharing or taking a look at the permissions on a particular calendar. So if I take a look at my own calendar, I'm going to share this calendar directly, and I've got my whole team of people right there who have the ability to see all of my event details, but I can also give them entire editing rights, making changes to an event if I want them to be able to update those, or I can say, you know what, make any changes you want. Manage the sharing on my calendar. If you think somebody else needs it, then that's something you're going to be able to do. And that means that you're going to be able to share calendars far more easily than having to manage delegates on everyone's accounts, because each calendar could be their main calendar or could be a secondary calendar that you're sharing with. So really valuable stuff to be able to manage sharing. And one thing to note, all events that are created by someone who is on the shared calendar actually show up that they were created by that person.
Hello.
A great way to get recognized for the deep work that you're doing in facilitating meetings and ideas or sessions that are happening. You can get credit for it, but it's still going on the person's calendar who you are sharing and are a part of that calendar. Now, inside of distribution lists or contact lists in Outlook, that really changes over to a Google Group, which is a collaborative inbox that we can all use and receive information from inside of our groups. The best way to get to those is simply going into our little app waffle or app launcher and then popping into groups there. You can set up your own Google Groups, and we'll talk about how to do that perhaps at another time, but you can favorite those groups. You can see all the messages that have come in, but that's a really easy way to have those distribution lists. Or if you want to do it more privately, you can use Google Contacts, create your own personal contact groups or labels. Now, we do have a global address list, but that's not really what it's called. It's the G Suite directory for our whole domain. And you'll use the contact manager in order to be able to do that. So you can hop into your contacts at any point and search from among them. Easiest way to do that is simply switching from mail, hop over to contacts, switch the view right there. Really easy to sort of manage our contacts. This is what it looks like, a contact label or contact group, depending on how you might phrase it. And what I can do is just start typing any name, and whether or not I have emailed them before, this is a part of my global list, or much more accurately, the G Suite directory, which is great. The only other thing to note in terms of language shifts is inside of Outlook, you have your calendar categories, all of those different color-coded Outlook calendar categories. But inside of Google Calendar, you just have separate calendars, which may seem weird for those of you who are used to calendar categories. But what it allows you to do is to actually see each one of your calendars all within a single view. So you don't have to have the side by side where everything gets real tiny, and you have to be able to see, you know, across all of the different calendars in a sliver way. You can actually see them all at the same time, which is super nice and useful. So that's the language changes directly from Outlook to our G Suite or Google Calendar and Gmail tools. But I did want to talk about a couple of common tasks that we hear classified staff and really everybody is going to want to be able to do. So let's say that you are an admin assistant managing the contacts of a principal. How can you do that? Well, delegating contacts is actually really easy. If I am in my contacts view inside of Gmail, all I have to do is click on more, and then I manage my delegation settings. So if I click on that manage delegation settings, I can determine, is there someone who can see all of my contacts and who can make changes to them. If I want somebody to update my address book and things like that, I can invite them directly, or if I want to kick them out, then I can save that change and I can remove them. Now, all of your contacts are private. There really is no way to change that. You see, it's really just specifically you, unless you give them explicit access to be able to share those contacts or edit those contacts, I should say. So that's something you might want to be able to do. It's a common task that a classified staff might do, or really any staff member. So one thing to think about is just how you create a new calendar. So formally, you might have created a category or something like that. But if you were creating a new team calendar, or trying to create a calendar that coordinates your volunteers, training and support, or even just an event calendar, all you have to do is, rather than in our calendar interface, you create, that's just for events, but rather, if I go to the little drop down right here on my screen where it says my calendars, I can actually just create the name of my new calendar. And I'm just going to do that because I think that it might be valuable to go through. So it'll say, I'm just going to call it test, and that's, you know, what we'll say event calendar test. We can obviously see what the description is for this calendar. This is a test, but it is within the APS Google organization. That's set up already for you. If there's a particular location that all of the events might be taking place, let's say at my house, then it's going to be something that people are going to know, right? You might put an address in, or even put a room. If this is a particular calendar that has all of its meetings in a particular room, you can immediately share this calendar either publicly. So if I make this calendar public to everyone in APS Google, then that means that they can add this, or I can make it public to the world. If there's a calendar that I want my parents of students to know about, or community members, I want them to be able to see that. I just check these two boxes and it makes it real nice and easy for them to be able to see. And then I can share it with individuals. So once I'm done adding anybody or changing the settings that I might like, I can create that calendar and we'll make sure I want to make it public. And then you'll see at the bottom of my list, or actually in alphabetical order, I should say, what we have is our new calendar, if I remember what we called it. And so there it is, event test calendar. And I can choose just to display this calendar. And if I do that, then any event that I create is automatically going to go on to the event test calendar. And it makes it real nice and easy. Now, I can color code individual events within a single calendar just by editing that event and being able to select the particular color that I might want it to be. But that's how you create a calendar, super easy. And then if you created a calendar that you no longer want, I'm going to discard that. But if you created a calendar that you no longer want, really all you have to do is choose the little drop down next to that particular name of the calendar, and then I can actually trash this one. I can delete it by going into my calendar settings and then permanently deleting this calendar. So I say, yes, absolutely. Nobody needs the event calendar test. But what's great is if I ever worry about if I remove something that I didn't want to remove, I can actually go into and see all of my trashed items. So if I accidentally delete a calendar event or things like that, that will be there. Now, it does eliminate the trash after 30 days, and that is for calendar events only, not calendars necessarily. Okay, so managing calendar permissions, we've actually already talked about, creating and managing that public calendar that everybody can see, and then sharing a calendar. Now, one thing to note is if you want to add a public calendar, let's say that you want to subscribe to one of the calendars that somebody else has already added, we can actually do this simply by going to other calendars and add a coworker's calendar. If I type in their email address, what I can do is actually add them, and that will trigger an email that's sent to them, and it will add their calendar directly at whatever level they have specifically allowed for. So if I just see free busy information, great. If they've shared it more widely, I can add anyone's calendar here, and that allows you to compare, who's busy, who's free. Makes it nice and easy to add as many people as you want, and you will see them simply by either typing in their name or by adding them directly to this other calendars area. We can also browse interesting calendars if you want to subscribe to other calendars, so holidays and things like that. We can even subscribe to sports games, or if we look at resources for Aurora K-12, we can actually see all of the rooms that are available. So if all of the rooms that I have access to, I can subscribe to, and then it makes it really nice. We've got our couple of building calendars that I can subscribe to, and I can see what's available there. And if there is a resource that you don't have access to, this is what it's going to show with. I can't add the war room, which is over at the IT building. I can't add that right now because I don't have access to that resource. But I do have access to the building calendar from Frontier and Quest. And then once we see all of our lovely schools come on board, then those calendars will show up right here. There's a really easy way to just kind of add those calendars. And it makes it nice and easy for us to sort of continue to have that transparency of events. So with all that said, there are a couple more things that you might want to do. One is booking one of those rooms or those buildings for the purpose of holding a meeting. And so you can book a room simply by, I'm going to go back to my calendar, and I'm going to actually see, oh, look, all of these events going on at Frontier right now or at Quest. But if I want to book a room, all I have to do is click on a particular spot if that's where I want that event to take place. And then I edit the event, go over to rooms, and it'll show me all of the rooms that are available at that time, and I can reserve it. If it's not available, it won't show up here. And I can do that very easily simply by going over to rooms when I am adding a location to my event. Now, there is a resource centrally managed, meaning you want all of the booking to go through the Google Calendar system. You can email the help desk, and it will they'll create that resource for you, and then it'll be available to anybody that you specify who has the ability to reserve that room in the future. Cool stuff. One thing to note in terms of your categorization of email is that you can have multiple categories nested within one another, and we just call those nested labels. So let's hop back into our Gmail interface, and in our settings, we can go over to settings and actually go into our labels, and you'll see that I have some labels here. What I'm going to do is just create a brand new label. If I want to say this is the top level awesome label, if I create that, that's going to show up my top level awesome label right there. But what I can do is I can create a new level, of nesting inside of that label, and I can start adding messages to it, which is fantastic. If I want to do that, I can just do my lower level, and then I'm going to nest it underneath my top level awesome label. So if I create that, we've got top level, we've got a lower level, and then what's great is I can keep on going here. If I say lowest level, look at that. It keeps on indenting in. So if I really want to recreate my amazing and awesome categories and folders inside of Outlook, I can do that. I can nest these things all together. I can have some things, you know, at the lowest level that I want, or obviously in those higher levels of hierarchy, all of our labels right there will show up. All right, this is something super valuable to talk through that you might want to do as a classified employee or really any employee, which is attach docs and sheets to emails. Let's say you want to send out a really important communication, super valuable to do. I can use the regular attachment, which will be a limit of up to 25 megabytes. Or if I use the insert using Google Drive, I can actually upload something, let's say from my, my hard drive. If I have a huge file, a video file or something like that, so this one right here is, you know, 6.5 megs. We've got stuff in here that are, you know, above that. Look at that one. That one's 496 megabytes. There's no way we could attach that to an email. But if I do that, it'll actually upload it directly into, yep. So it says because you've selected more than 25 megabytes, it's gonna attach it as a drive link so that people can download it when they need to. This is a huge file, and I would not be able to do that in Outlook. So you can send things that are really massive, but if you already have something inside of Google Drive, like a spreadsheet or something like that, I'm going to just choose that particular spreadsheet. And what's great is it will actually ensure that the spreadsheet that I attach is shared with anybody that I put on the recipients list. So I don't even have to mess around with, you know, adding people in the documents and things like that. Anybody that I share this with, if I go like this, and I'm just sharing it with a dummy account here, but if I send this, what's great is that particular document gets automatically shared with that particular account. And it just makes it really nice and easy for everyone because we're all used to sending emails and attaching things. But if you attach it from Google Drive, then it'll go and be shared correctly. You don't have to worry about getting a message, hey, would you share this differently, and things like that. All right. So now this gets into some pretty interesting spots when you're trying to delegate your email, or if you need let's say a principal wants to delegate their email to a secretary or to an assistant. They can do that inside of Gmail. We made sure that that was a feature because we know it's important. So if I go over here into my settings, this is super valuable to look at. But in my settings in Gmail, if I click on accounts, I can grant access to my account so that they can send as me, and it'll show up that I sent the email. So you want to make sure that you're very protective of that. But this is really great, and you do have a little bit of a setting here. You can mark a conversation as read when it was opened by someone else, or I can leave it unread because I wasn't the one who read it, right? It was somebody else that read that. So even though they are going in as me and you know, cleaning up my inbox or something like that, it will still say unread. Now, if I no longer want that person to have those delegated rights, I can delete them out of here and then essentially revoke the access. So now they no longer have access to my account. No worries. and they aren't able to send email as me or to organize my inbox as if they were me. All right, let's talk about read receipts. So read receipts are super interesting in that it's not super easy to find how to turn that on. But if you have a message that might be of value to know who has read, who has not read a message, all you need to do is once you've got everything set up for your message, just click on that drop down button down in the bottom right corner of the composed message. And all I have to do is say request read receipt. And that'll be a checkbox that you'll be able to use. And anytime someone reads the message, if they hop out of that particular message, it'll say, hey, did you read this? Do you want to send a read notice? And that's a really easy way for you to know that your email is getting through, that this communication is working. And this works on all systems. It doesn't have to just be Gmail. It'll send a read receipt. If that particular system understands read receipts, then it'll send one automatically. So it doesn't have to be just inside of the domain. You can still see those read receipts as long as the system that you're sending to also understands the read receipts, which is fantastic. All right, let's get into some more specific things that you're going to do in your email, either as a classified employee or really anybody. Creating rules for email. It's something that we do using filters inside of our Gmail. And the best way I know how to do this is to show you simply by searching. So one of my favorite things to do is to create a filter, a rule, for categorizing everything with an attachment. So all I have to do, I'm not going to fill out anything else. I'm going to just click has attachment, and then I'm going to click search. Now it's going to show me literally everything, including calendar appointments that are attachments from an outside system. And so if I really want it to just get the attachments that are maybe a little bit bigger, then what I'm going to do is say that it's got to be at least 100 kilobytes of size. Then I'm really going to get the attachments that I want. So you'll notice that there's some plain language up here. You can fiddle around with all of that plain language information, but it's essentially has : attachment larger than 100 kilobytes. That lets me do a filter if I want to do so, simply by doing that drop down there and then create filter with this search. Then I can decide what I want to do with it. These are all the rules that are pre-made out of the box. If it has a large attachment of some kind, I want to put it into a label. If I don't already have a label for that, I'm going to create a new one that just says attachments. If I create that, what's great is it will create that filter for me, and I can do it to everything back in the past. So everything that had an attachment, I'm going to apply to that. And now the attachments label is off to the left-hand side. I've got all of my messages that have an attachment. Now, we're going to talk about this in a second, but if you want to see it more like in a regular Gmail view, I can switch back to the regular view there. But what's great about this is I now have all of the attachments that are larger than 100 kilobytes. And you can actually go back years sometimes and see all of those attachments. I can change around what I want this particular filter to do if I want to, simply by going into my settings and then looking at all of the filters that I already have. So you can see, all right, these are the rules that I've got set up. If it matches, has an attachment larger than 100K, apply that label. But if I want to change that to do something else or to have more criteria, then I can do that. And I can say, skip the inbox, I don't want to see it, mark it as read automatically, forward it to an address, which is super interesting, delete it, never send it to spam if I want to do so. This is another one that we'll get into in just a little bit, but I can actually have it automatically send a message. If I want it to trigger an email, it will automatically send a message that will allow for people to know, hey, I got your email, or this attachment is great, you know, whatever the trigger is for that particular rule, it'll let me send a message back to folks. And it really does make it nice and efficient. And I can manage all of my filters or rules, depending on how you might call them, inside of this settings pane. So I can see everything here, which is really great. All right, so I've created all my rules for emails. We want to find a time for a meeting. I think we talked about this last time, but it is valuable to go over as well. In terms of calendar, I can see, you know, what rooms are available, but as soon as I start typing in guests' names, if I go into the find a time spot, it'll actually put my calendar right next to the people that I want to have a meeting with, which is great. It lets me see who's available, who's not available, and then choose any time that that essentially has this this open window. So anything with this black window is not available for folks, and anything with the white window is. Now, set of day to be 6 p.m. So she's asking people not to schedule meetings after 6 on a typical day, which is obviously super appropriate. And it makes it nice and easy for folks to be able to take advantage of beginning and ending of our work days. So that's how you see if there is available opportunities. All right, appointment slots, super valuable inside of our calendar. Once again, if we have an appointment slot, let's say we want to do this from 1 to 5 p.m. rather than creating an event, I can let people reserve that time. So if I want to do principal meetings, I can offer those as 30-minute slots, 45-minute slots, 60-minute slots, however I want to do it. Let's say 30-minute slots. Once I create that, if I go into that particular meeting, what's great about this is all I have to do is send this link to whomever I want to take those slots, and they will see each one of these options alongside their Google Calendar. This is my Google Calendar to see, oh man, this is something that we absolutely have time for. And so I can reserve that. I can decide where I want it to be, make a description. And it really does simplify the process of creating an event or setting a meeting. So super valuable for folks to be able to plan things together rather than having to go back and forth in email, right? So you don't want to play email tag that way. All right, the last thing that we're going to talk about before we dive into some of the labs inside of Gmail is reminders and notifications. So if you would like to receive notifications inside of your browser, and actually system notifications inside of Gmail, you get to decide what kind of notifications you want. So new notifications can be turned on. Important notifications, you can do that, or you can have no notifications whatsoever. You just do that inside of your settings. In terms of calendar, in terms of our calendar, all we would need to do is go into our settings and again, turn on those notifications. So if we have our, I skipped it right there. So notifications, use the browser notifications instead of like a pop-up inside of your browser, which I absolutely prefer. And then you can have it play a sound or not. I typically don't like the sound because I never know where it's coming from and things like that. But it does make it nice and easy for us to receive notifications. Now, if you want to go one step further and you want more information from your notifications, we do recommend the Checker Plus extensions where you can get some customization on what kinds of notifications you get through your browser, both for Gmail as well as for your Google Calendar. So inside of the classified resource, we do have links to the notification extension for Gmail as well as for Calendar. And so these are super valuable tools and resources if you are a classified employee or if you happen to need one of those features. The only other one that I was going to recommend that we check out are the labs. So there are a couple of things that don't look exactly like Outlook, but if you're trying to make your Gmail look more like your Outlook, you're going to want to turn on Preview Pane and then also the Google Calendar gadget. So the Preview Pane we saw just a second ago, where we were looking at it and it had the information, so that when I go into, I'm just going to look at my all mail. So this is the way Gmail tends to look ordinarily. But if I have the Preview Pane and I turn on the vertical split, what happens here is it lets me, hop into a particular email, and it shows up just as it would in Outlook, where you have all of your emails on the left-hand side, and then obviously you see your messages right over here. It makes it nice and easy to see, all of those kinds of things. What's great about the calendar is that I can also see it on the left-hand side. If I want to check out my little mini calendar right over here, I'm going to see all of the dates, and I can hop to one if I'm worried about, oh, I want to have my calendar up and I want to see my email. So I can see that, and that makes it nice and easy for folks to have their calendar, have their email, and make it look pretty similar to Outlook. The last feature that I do want to talk about in labs is the canned responses. So if there is a message that you find yourself having to write over and over and over and over again, use a canned response. It'll let you get the right message every single time. You turn on that canned response, and anytime you compose an email, you can use canned responses, and you can insert that canned response and have that be the same message to everybody, so you don't have to keep retyping things. Super valuable. You can also save new canned responses if you realize this is something I'm going to be typing out 100 times. Makes it really nice and easy to be able to send out that canned response and have it be consistent, have it be valuable, across. It also lets you use them in filters. So if you are looking for keywords and you want it to automatically trigger a particular response, about a particular issue that has come up, you can have it do an auto response, and then when you have the full time to send a unique message, you can do that as well. But it makes it really nice and easy. Those canned responses can be so valuable, such a time saver. So I know a couple of people are watching, so if you do have questions, I'm going to open it up for further questions, and then we will wrap for the day. Super excited to have you join us for the G Suiteness Hour number 2. All right. Thank you so much for joining us. Once again, you can get all of our resources at gsuite.aurorak12.org. And I really appreciate your time. Robert McReynolds says, thanks for the tips and tricks. Absolutely, anytime. Looking forward to the next one. We'll be doing these once a week. and really digging into all of the different ways to use G Suite within our district and beyond. So hope everybody has a great Tuesday. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.